month after my 21st birthday, I traveled from Montana up to Alberta, Canada to ice climb on a world-famous ice pitch. At 8 o'clock that night, the temperature dropped drastically. Since we had no equipment to keep ourselves warm, our best bet for survival was to try to get off the mountain. It was 150 feet down. We rappelled in the air on this overhang to a large area. We were stuck. And I was cold though, and I'd never been that cold, and I had frostbite on my fingertips and my nose and my toes and my cheeks and my chin, and I had hypothermia. And then I fell asleep. And only this time I didn't lose consciousness, but I knew that I had fallen asleep, and I felt myself being sucked out of my core like a vacuum, and I resisted with all this strength that I had built up through the survival journey that I was on, and I tried to stay in my body, and I couldn't. It irresistibly pulled me out, and I died. And I found myself in a great dark void, infinite, without a body, but with full consciousness, like a sphere of consciousness. And in front of me, if I had a front, was this gigantic door. And the door was 30 yards wide and 70 yards tall, and it was the proverbial tunnel that people talk about was through this gateway. And I said, "Am I dead?" And the voice of God, with no voice and no language, said to me, "Yes, you're dead." And I said, "But I haven't gone through the door yet." And the voice of God said, "No, you haven't." I said, "Well, do I have to go through the door? I have this sister, you see, that left our family and broke my mother's heart. And I didn't want to break my mom's heart again and leave them." And God said and showed me, he said, The love with which I love you now, I have always loved you. And that same love that I love you with now, I love your family, and I love each person on earth with this fullness of love and forgiveness and knowing and mercy that you feel right now, and beauty, and all will be well, and your family will be okay. And the next thing I knew, I was being screwed back into my body like an ice screw that you use to put into the ice to hang on, and it was painful and it hurt, and I got driven into my body from my stomach, and I came to, and my partner Tim had me by the shoulder, and he was screaming at me, "Don't die, don't leave me here." And I kept my mouth shut about what had happened for close to 20 years. And now I'm telling this story because what it's left me with is that I know that I'm known, and I know that I'm beloved, and I know that you are too, and everybody is. And I know that this is not the end of life, that this is just the passage through to real life. And it's this long, and that's how much time we have till we get to go home. And I'm waiting to go home. I pray for it every day. I can't wait. That's my story. When I had been dead, I understood that I was the center of the beingness of God in its largesse, not in its infinity, because I couldn't penetrate quite that, but in its universal nature, and that came down with me as a small piece of itself inside me. And so as a school of experience, it seems to me that the divine being, the infinite, the unlimited, can't experience the limited without creating the limited. So it is truly experiencing all of the suffering with us and inside of us as we experience it. And so in a sense, we are the capital S self, the supreme self, experiencing limitation itself. And the supreme self makes this existence happen. So there's this much higher level of experience here than it is individual. So there's this
there's this struggle that I can't wait to die. I'm waiting to die because I know when I die, I go home. And if I die violently, I end up dying violently. That's my exit point. But I feel compassion for those left behind. I came back into this duality by choice, by decision, and allowance, and was able to take some of that with me back into this duality so that my blindness was to an extent alleviated beneath the veil. When I was dead, I saw the structure of the universe. I understood that I asked for to understand the knowledge of the structure of all things. And I could only bring back a tiny, tiny spot of that. But the larger part of what I brought back is that I only carried back a tiny part of it, and that it's inconceivable to me in my human form. I can't understand the whys of it, the WHY, the pourquoi of it. I can't understand it. It's beyond my capacity. And so instead, I choose to pursue the entity itself, because by pursuing the entity itself, I find my integration. But also, in helping in the world, I see even my enemies in my life, and I have lived a professional life, and I've lived a very dramatic life. And the people who have been my enemies in my life, not by my choosing, but by theirs, uh, even inside of those seeking to ruin me, I still see the light within them. And so, by seeing of the light within all creatures, even in myself, is indiscriminate. And so when I see someone suffering and I can do something to alleviate the suffering, and I act toward alleviation of the suffering, I'm actually helping my own higher self. Not because that's my motivation, but because that's, you help those you love. And if you love yourself, you help yourself. And in addition to that, meditation and breath work is the practice of the cessation of the stream of thought, of the identification of the self, the things we tell ourselves about who we are every moment of the day. When that's interrupted, it allows the presence of the divine to be there. That's a selflessness. A selfless act in the world is when you put yourself aside, your time, your desires, your needs, your wants. You set yourself aside for the sake of another. That is also a stripping of the self. And so parents in particular who care for and love, all parents love their kids, but not all parents care for their kids. Most parents do, but there are some who don't. And they're the outliers. But parents who love and care for their children, the caring of children is the setting aside of self. You might not like it every time you got an appointment, you got to go to a meeting, and your kid's vomiting in the kitchen, and now you got to quit your day, and you got to, give up this part of your life, and you might not like doing that. But in the action of doing that, you're setting aside yourself, which makes it a spiritual act. And so that it can be expanded not just to your personal family life, but the world around you. When you help, when I was a Boy Scout, do a good deed daily, help the old lady across the busy intersection. That's the same sort of thing as tossing a couple of bucks into the mentally ill homeless person's hat, or to simply pick up the trash that somebody threw on the sidewalk, and put it in the barrel. All these are selfless acts, and they all lead to the end of self-identification, that that my own false self is the most important thing, like selfishness and narcissism, where I am the most important thing there is in the world. These interior acts of breath and the acts of giving, charity in the world, these unbalance that selfishness, dethrone it. I've helped quite a number of NDEers and quite a number of non-NDEers who've had mystical experiences that come about in a variety of ways, out-of-body experiences, psychedelics, all sorts of different things. I help people integrate back into the world again. My first near-death experience isn't the only mystical experience I've had in my life, nor is my second NDE. I've had many kinds of mystical experiences, not of my own volition. I didn't make them happen, they just happened to me. So it gave me this very broad and wide experience with a focal point on unity and the oneness of being. And I was on my own integrating all of this since I was 5 years old. And so I kept it all a secret to myself and began my own self-examination. I used scholarship and psychology and meditation and yoga, and I learned to integrate myself. And so I'm offering services to people to help them integrate, so you don't have to go through the years that I went through by myself trying to figure this out. And so what I'm able to offer people is a way to think through their experience and find the nuggets that are the wisdom that came back with them, that gives them the legs to stand on in order to not have to spend decades integrating. They can do it more quickly. What I would tell the people who are listening is that because of this broad experience I've had over my lifetime, dozens of mystical experiences, and again, I didn't make these things happen, they happened to me, so I'm not out there trying to grasp these. They're just who I am. Because of that wide experience, I have the capacity to give a lot of validation. Because I've gone through so many different kinds of experiences, I can recognize inside of many experiences similarities to what's happened to me and be able to help explain that to them and help them understand it more clearly and validate their experience. One of my mystical experiences that I had the year before I died, when I was backpacking on the Appalachian Trail in Western Massachusetts in the United States in winter, I had this experience where I was given a gold dust and told to give it away. I give this to you, now give it away. And so my whole orientation in my life is to teach this thing that is unspeakable and to give it away. And that's what I did as a church pastor. Pastors are essentially free employees for the community. I was basically a community ombudsman. I had a house, of course, and I had a salary, but nothing compared to what I would have been earning as a working in a corporation somewhere, which I was capable of doing and capable of. My gift is constantly giving away this unspeakable. So I teach meditation practice 2 days a week, because the core of the essence of the divine being isn't the knowledge that's gained inside your head. It's the emptiness that's created inside yourself that allows the space to be filled by the divine presence, prana, chi, Holy Spirit, by so many energetic source of all being, so many names, none of them accurate, all of them metaphors, but meditation practice creates the space. And this is the essence of the divine presence, is the presence inside yourself, this still small space inside yourself, which connects to the origin of who you are, that can be expanded. So a lot of my work these days is trying to give people the tools on how to do this, how to actually practice and to share the radiance between us, because when two or more are gathered, I am there. The power of the magnification and the practice in a collective outweighs the individual practice alone. So twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, 20 minutes a day, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, live video, little talk on maybe today I talked about the benefits of meditation for mental health and psychology and sleep. But the other day, I talked about Lao Tzu and one of his sayings. And so I teach a little bit and I tell a little bit about how to practice, and then we just practice together. It's basically Sangha, which is a collective group of practice. So then on Sundays, I teach, because I have a scholar's background. I'm basically a public scholar on Sundays. I take information these days mostly from the Gospel of Thomas in a comparative for similarities in the gospel, in the canonical gospels, but also a broad global comparative. What is Jesus has this idea, has this expression of his mystical self in the Gospel of Thomas. It's overlaid in the Gospel of Matthew. It's sort of hidden inside there, and you have to pull it out. But then you find the similar idea over in Lao Tzu or in Rumi or in the teachings of the Buddha or the Upanishads or the Vedas, because the universality of mysticism supersedes individual experience. Because this singleness and this union is found throughout all of the literature. And so, what I'm trying to do on Sunday mornings is to deconstruct the Western Christian view of who Jesus was and what he is as a mystical teacher, and to draw a direct line over to the similarities found in the other union teachings around the world. The light, as it grows inside oneself, not only fills the body full of light, it radiates out into the world with this sort of equanimity. It comes out into the world as like a bubble form around you. And it doesn't solve any of the problems of your life. It doesn't fix your broken leg. But what it does is that it brings a new you to yourself and your interactions with yourself and others in the world. And so you become lesser, and the light itself becomes greater in you. So there's the filter, it pulls down the veils. It pulls down the veils. And breath work, and to swing back to meditation, breath work and mental focus peels back the veils. And Islam talks about the 70,000 veils. There's 70,000 veils. That's a lot of veils to peel back. People who are grieving, and people who are troubled, and people who are suicidal, and people who are in trouble, people who are suffering, contact me, and I do my best to help them find some solace and direction in the pain that they're suffering in the world. And I've got 40 years of pastoral experience. I was a pastoral counselor for 40 years as part of my role as a minister. So that's not a new thing for me. I invite people to come and check out my channel. I'm trying to form a community of mystics. And the reason why I'm trying to form this community of mystics is because I was alone for so many years. My community of mystics were all these dead people that I found in the books around the history of the world, of mysticism, and in the East and the West, but I couldn't talk to them. And then the NDEs came out, and I came out as an NDEer, and I found a community of near-death experiencers, and I came to understand that near-death experience is a type of mystical experience. And I realized that I'd been so lonely all these years, there must be other lonely people like me in the world. I'm at peterpanagore.love, peterpanagore.love. My email address is peter@peterpanagore.love, and everything I charge for my time and my counseling practice, but I don't charge for any of my scholarship or my presentation or meditations. I ask the people, if it has value for them, to contribute. Tuesday Group is a Zoom meeting of people who want to deepen their meditative life, and I'm teaching Kriya Yoga. I've been a practitioner of it in secret for 40 years. I found that the divine energy is my teacher. I knew that when I came back. I follow the divine presence of the energy inside me, and I allow it to teach my self itself. And now I'm teaching the techniques that I use to create a larger space inside me for the divine to be there. 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And if you subscribe to my emails, you'll be able to get a link every Tuesday morning. So I created a community that meets on Sunday mornings in Mystic Tea Salon. And we have conversations on Zoom and our rules are humility, compassion, and kindness. We speak from our experiences. We talk about things that you can't talk about anywhere else, in a safe environment where your mystical experience is valued and that you have right of voice. Because one of the things that happens with a mystical experience is that it gives you wisdom. It gives you noetic knowledge, understanding that's lodged inside your soul. Now you have a portion of the light of the truth inside you, and we're a place to share that. It's not about ego. It's not about selfishness. It's about the divine presence itself. And so come join our community. Come check us out on Sunday mornings. If you show up at 10 a.m. Eastern time, I give a little talk. I do this comparative work globally in mysticism. And then at the top of the next hour, we meet for an hour, hour and a half, and have a conversation globally. People from Thailand, from Colombia, from England, from Ireland, the Netherlands, all over the world. Mystic Tea Salon is welcome to all of those, because when I was dead and other NDEers, God has no religion. There is no religion there. There is only love. And this love is eternal in its nature, present in all nature, present in ourselves, and accessible here. And it doesn't eliminate the vicissitudes and trials and tribulations of living. It doesn't stop the pain, but it does end the suffering. And it ends the suffering because it separates oneself from oneself, and one then witnesses from above living. It still hurts. When my leg broke, it still hurt. But I witnessed myself in the experience while I was feeling the experience. And the power of it is the power of the presence of heaven in the now.